Content warning. This deep dive contains references to child sexual abuse, systemic misconduct, and institutional betrayal. The content may be distressing for some listeners.
If you or someone you know needs support, contact Bravehearts on 1-800-272-831, Blue Knot Foundation on 1-300-657-380 or 1-800-737-732.
This story is based on survivor testimony, public records, and long-form investigative reporting. Identities have been protected where appropriate. Welcome to The Deep Dive. I'm the Illuminator.
And I'm the architect.
You're listening to The Deep Dive, a show by Underground Media Network. Here, we investigate what power tries to bury.
We center survivors.
Dismantle silence and demand institutional accountability. This deep dive was produced under the editorial direction of Landon Germanotta-Mills, editor-in-chief of Underground Media Network.
And today we're digging into something incredibly difficult.
Yeah, really difficult, but profoundly crucial. We're looking at the systemic patterns of child exploitation and institutional betrayal that have, well, plagued Australian policing.
And this isn't just a recent thing, is it?
No, not at all. Our sources trace these issues back as far as 1963, continuing right up to this very year, 2025.
So our mission today is really to extract the most crucial insights from this multi-decade crisis.
Exactly. Drawing on powerful sources, rooted in survivor testimony, painstakingly pieced together public records.
And that rigorous, long-form investigative journalism that really digs deep.
Right. We want you to walk away not just informed, but with a deeper understanding of the forces at play here.
And from the outset, the sources make it explicitly clear.
What's that?
This is emphatically not a story of isolated incidents. It's not the "a few bad apples" narrative we hear so often.
Right, that dismissal.
Exactly. The evidence points to something far more insidious, a systemic generational betrayal, something that's been unfolding within Australian policing for decades.
Generational betrayal, that's a really strong phrase. How did the sources actually demonstrate that? Is it just the sheer number of cases, or are there specific threads connecting them?
It's much more than just the volume, though. That's certainly part of it. The sources confirm this betrayal stretches back at least 37 years from right now, 2025.
So well before 1988.
Absolutely. It was a pervasive problem even then. To really grasp the gravity, the sources use a metaphor. Imagine a vast forest.
Hey.
In this forest, some trees are visibly sick, dying. These represent the individual police officers charged with these horrific crimes.
The individual cases we hear about.
Precisely. But the deeply entrenched problem isn't just those few diseased trees. The real issue is that the entire soil beneath the forest is contaminated.
Ah, okay. So it's not just bad roots on a few trees.
No.
It's the foundation itself.
Exactly. This contaminated soil affects the roots of many, many more trees. It prevents healthy growth, allows illness to spread unseen, often for decades.
And this contaminated soil represents what specifically?
It represents the systemic failures, the pervasive institutional cover-ups, and a deeply ingrained culture of impunity that has, for far too long, allowed these crimes to persist, remain hidden, and frankly, fester within the Australian policing system.
So what does this mean for you, listening right now? Why is it so important for you to understand this difference between, bad apples and this contaminated soil?
Because when we as a society only focus on the individual cases, the sick trees, we inevitably miss the larger, more insidious structural problem.
The problem that allows it all to happen in the first place.
Yes. The very structure that allows these crimes to flourish and remain buried for decades. This deep dive is designed to illuminate that hidden, corrupted structure.
Showing you not just what happened, but how it was allowed to happen.
And importantly, how it continues to happen. It's about pulling back the curtain on the silence and the power that has enabled this betrayal for so long.
Okay. To really understand the landscape here and the severity of the cases we're going to discuss, we probably need to get clear on definitions first. What exactly are we talking about when we say child abuse material?
Yes, that's crucial. Understanding the legal definition of child abuse material, or CAM, is fundamental, not just for legal clarity, but to really appreciate the seriousness of what these officers are alleged to possess or produce.
So what does the law say?
According to the Crimes Act 1900 in New South Wales, specifically, Section 91 FB child abuse material is defined quite broadly.
Okay.
It includes content depicting or describing a person under 16 or someone who appears or is implied to be under 16 as a victim of torture, cruelty, or physical abuse.
So it's quite wide-ranging.
Very. And this breadth means there's little room for ambiguity, which makes those cases where officers were found with CAM yet face minimal consequences.
Well, it makes them all the more indicative of a systemic failure, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it goes beyond physical abuse too, right? It does. The definition also covers depictions of a child engaged in a sexual pose or activity,
Oh,
or even just being in the presence of another person doing so.
right.
And it explicitly covers depictions of the private parts of the child in an offensive way.
And private parts are defined.
Yes, legally defined as the genital or anal area or the breasts of a female person. This detailed definition really underscores the severity of charges involving CAM.
And the consequences. What are the legal ramifications?
They're severe, as they should be. Under Section 91H of the same NSW Crimes Act, disseminating, possessing, or producing CAM is a very serious offense. It carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison.
10 years. Okay. And how does the law view terms like possession or dissemination?
That's a critical point. Our sources clarify this. Possession isn't just physical custody. It includes having control of the material or data, even if it's stored digitally, say on a hard drive or phone. Dissemination covers a whole range of actions. Sending it, supplying it, exhibiting it, transmitting it, communicating it, or even just making it available for someone else to access.
So, pretty comprehensive.
Very. And production covers creating the material, filming, photographing, printing, but also altering or manipulating existing material. The law casts a very wide net.
It seems designed to cover basically any involvement.
That's the intent. And the defenses available for these charges are incredibly narrow.
Like what?
Generally, you'd have to prove you genuinely didn't know or reasonably couldn't have known about the material. Or perhaps if the conduct demonstrably benefits the public through legitimate law enforcement or justice administration and doesn't go beyond that specific purpose.
Very limited circumstances.
Extremely. There are also very specific, rare exceptions for material with a particular classification for publication, or if its use is approved for specific research by the Attorney General. But these are highly specific and rare.
So, this legal strictness, it should demand high accountability from anyone.
Let alone a police officer, yes. Yet, as our timeline clearly shows, officers have often seemed to navigate around this strictness through institutional avenues, rather than facing the full force of the law like an ordinary citizen might.
Which brings us to the pervasive reach of this crisis, because the sources are overwhelming on this point. This isn't confined to one region, one state.
Not at all. We've been presented with what's described as a forensic timeline. It lists police officers charged with child sexual abuse and related offenses covering every single Australian state and territory.
Every single one.
Every single one. From 1988 right through to this year, 2025.
Wow, so it's not just geographically widespread.
It's deeply entrenched over time, spanning generations. It highlights that this isn't, a localized issue for one particular police force. It's a recurring, insidious pattern of systemic failure.
A pattern manifesting across the entire country.
Affecting the very institutions sworn to protect. It's that contaminated soil infecting the whole forest.
Okay. To really grasp the scale and the consistency of this problem, we need to look at how this systemic issue has shown up over the decades across different states. We can't list every case, obviously, but let's trace some of the most, chilling patterns that emerge from the data.
One deeply disturbing pattern that repeats is the prevalence of quiet dismissals and suspended sentences.
Okay, can you give an example?
Sure. Take Senior Constable Neil Robert Patton in New South Wales. Back in 2002, he was convicted of possessing child pornography. He received a suspended sentence.
Suspended for that.
Yes. And then he was simply quietly dismissed. No public announcement, no fanfare, just a discreet exit from the force.
Right. Made to disappear.
Exactly. Similarly, in Queensland, Sergeant Warren Francis Shafarius was convicted of CAM possession in 2007. He also received a suspended sentence.
So these aren't isolated decisions.
Doesn't seem like it. They feel like textbook examples of institutions choosing to manage a crisis internally, protecting their reputation by making the problem or the person go away rather than confronting it publicly.
It suggests a kind of institutional reflex, doesn't it? To avoid scrutiny at all costs.
Precisely. Then there's the truly shocking practice of officers being suspended with pay while facing these heinous charges.
Suspended with pay?
Yes. Look at Senior Constables Angelo Franco de Loza and James Dillanicholas in NSW back in 2020. They faced charges including aggravated sexual assault, production of CAM, misconduct. Both were refused bail by the courts.
Okay.
Yet, disturbingly, both were suspended with pay by the force.
How does that even work?
It's hard to understand. The same year, Sergeant Ronald John Tarlington, convicted of sexual touching, got an 18-month conditional release order, but was also suspended on full pay pending his appeal.
This isn't just a minor detail, is it?
No. It's a stark illustration. It shows how the system seems to prioritize its own, the alleged perpetrator's financial well-being and the presumption of their innocence over the immediate symbolic and practical support for victims. It's in the clear message about who the institution protects.
And another pattern you mentioned.
The betrayal of trust in sensitive roles. This one is particularly chilling. Consider the 2018 case of Senior Constable Dean Perkins in NSW. He was a youth liaison officer.
A role specifically designed to work with and protect young people.
Exactly. A position of immense trust. He was charged with aggravated indecency, assault, grooming children under 14, and even attempted sexual intercourse with a child under 10. His proceedings are still ongoing now in 2025.
Still ongoing. That's years later.
Yes, highlighting the agonizingly slow pace of justice sometimes. Or look at Victoria in 2024. A leading senior constable named suppressed, charged with 3 counts of sexual assault while on duty.
While on duty.
Yes, these cases expose how predators didn't just infiltrate the force, they actively exploited the very positions designed to protect the most vulnerable. The irony, the tragedy. It amplifies the institutional betrayal almost beyond words.
And then there's the shadow of inaction, the institutional protectionism.
Right. The lingering shadow of inaction and institutional protectionism. In 2022, a NSW police officer, whose name is suppressed, was found guilty internally of inappropriate sexual touching of a restrained 15-year-old Aboriginal boy.
Found guilty internally.
Yes, by an internal police process. Yet, crucially, no criminal charges were laid.
So it was handled entirely within the force.
It appears so, which raises critical questions about internal versus external accountability. How often are serious matters just swept under the rug like this without any public or legal consequence?
It suggests a two-tiered system.
It certainly raises that concern. And this pattern of protectionism can seem to extend even beyond logic sometimes. In Tasmania, there was Senior Sergeant Paul Reynolds. He was accused of grooming and abuse spanning 30 years, from 1988 to 2018.
Okay.
Tragically, he took his own life after an investigation began. But then, controversially, he was still given a posthumous police funeral.
A police funeral. After those accusations.
Yes. That incident, perhaps more than any other, encapsulates a shocking level of institutional loyalty. A loyalty that seemed to prioritize the uniform and its image over the severity of the accusations and the potential victims. It's a truly damning insight into the system's values.
And you mentioned the slow pace of justice before.
Yes, the delayed and ongoing proceedings. It's another recurring theme. In South Australia, there's a retired officer, named Confidential, from Elizabeth. He faces historic child exploitation charges. They were reported way back in 2007.
2007, that's nearly 2 decades ago.
Exactly. And the case is only now awaiting committal, scheduled for February 2026.
That's an incredibly long time for victims to wait.
It is, and it's not isolated. In WA, Senior Constable Jason Allen Taylor faces 17 child sexual offenses allegedly committed between 2009 and 2012. His trial is still ongoing in 2025.
Still ongoing.
In the NT, Constable Jared Porch is on bail. His trial for uploading and downloading over 600 TM files resumes in October 2025. These delays mean victims wait years, sometimes decades, for any kind of resolution, while the cloud hangs over everyone.
And it feels like there's one more layer to this. The influence of connections.
That seems to be a concern raised by the sources, yes. The influence of proximity to the institution. They highlight a specific case from March 2024 in NSW. A public servant, who happens to be the son of a veteran NSW police officer, was charged with the rape and sexual abuse of his young daughter.
Okay.
Shockingly, he was granted bail. And the condition: he was allowed to live with his veteran police officer father.
Granted bail to live with his police officer father after those charges.
Yes. This case, understandably, raises critical questions about whether proximity to the institution can somehow influence judicial outcomes, or at least the perception of fairness in the system.
These aren't just abstract patterns, are they?
Not at all. These are real cases, real victims, real institutional choices repeated over decades. It paints a picture of a profound, recurring problem.
And this brings us to a very recent case, doesn't it? Senior Constable Mitchell Leslie. It feels like this case serves as a kind of current flashpoint, bringing many of these systemic issues into sharp, immediate focus.
It really does. He was 38 years old, attached to Hornsby Police Station in NSW. His case, in many ways, embodies that sick tree we talked about.
Right.
But it's also peeled back layers to reveal so much more about the contaminated soil beneath
Now,
it.
let's dig into that. How did the investigation into Mitchell Leslie actually start?
It began with Strike Force Bluemont. This was established by the Professional Standards Command, the Internal Affairs Unit of the NSW Police Force, back in March 2025. But here's the significant part. Strike Force Bluemont wasn't initially set up to investigate child abuse material. Its primary objective was specifically to investigate reports of unauthorized access to the police computer system.
The internal CopyS database.
Exactly. CopyS, the Computerized Operational Policing System, think of it as the central digital vault for all NSW police records. Citizen details, vehicle registrations, ongoing investigations, sensitive intelligence, everything.
So its security and integrity are absolutely paramount.
Completely. Which makes what they ultimately uncovered even more disturbing. Their initial focus was an internal breach, a potential data misuse, not the horrific crimes they eventually alleged.
So how did they get from investigating database misuse to the other charges?
By May of this year, 2025, as part of that investigation into the database misuse, the Strike Force investigators seized Leslie's electronic devices, his phone, his laptop. Standard procedure in such an investigation.
And they examined them forensically.
Correct. And it was that forensic examination that apparently unveiled the much, much deeper alleged problem.
Leading to his arrest.
Yes, on July 15th, 2025, just after 9:00 a.m., right there at Hornsby Police Station.
And the charges laid against him were extremely serious.
Extremely. Firstly, misconduct of public office that's a breach of the fundamental trust placed in him as an officer.
Right.
Secondly, and this is where the scale is just staggering, 2 counts of possessing child abuse material.
And the quantity alleged.
Prosecutors allege he possessed over 200,000 child abuse images on his devices.
200,000.
Yes. It's been described by prosecutors as one of the largest individual seizures in Australian law enforcement history.
That number, it's almost impossible to comprehend. It suggests more than just stumbling across something.
It certainly suggests a sustained, deliberate engagement with such material far beyond any accidental exposure. He was also charged with 1 count of possessing bestiality material.
Can you clarify what that involves?
Yes. Bestiality or animal crush material generally depicts bestiality or serious injury to an animal, and it's material intended to excite a sexual, sadistic, or perverted interest. Possession of that carries a maximum of 3 years imprisonment.
Okay. And beyond those horrific charges.
He also faced 3 counts related to the initial investigation, accessing or modifying restricted data held in police computer systems.
And that alleged misuse of the police systems, the CRPS database, is a crucial element here, isn't it? It points to those systemic vulnerabilities we talked about.
Absolutely. It highlights not only a potential breach of public trust, but also critical weaknesses in internal controls and data oversight. Leslie allegedly used the MTS database for various unauthorized purposes.
Such as?
According to the allegations, obtaining information to help shield his partner from detection for driving offenses.
Wow.
Helping her brother avoid domestic violence charges, and even reportedly writing an official police letter to try and expedite his partner's housing relocation.
Using police resources for personal matters.
Which prosecutors specifically described as a clear conflict of interest. It raises profound questions about who monitors access, what safeguards are in place, and whether officers can potentially use this incredibly sensitive data for personal gain or to subvert justice.
So what's his current status, legally and with the force?
Legally, Mitchell Leslie was refused bail, so he remains in custody. His next court appearance is scheduled for September 10th, 2025 at Downing Center Local Court.
And his job?
He was suspended from duty. Now, there were some conflicting reports on this initially. Some sources said with pay, but Underground Media Network, one of our key sources for this deep dive, specified it was without pay.
That difference matters.
It does, and it points to the very transparency issues we're discussing. Regardless, an urgent review of his employment status is currently underway.
So pulling this together, why does understanding this specific case, the Mitchell Leslie case, matter so profoundly for our listeners?
Because his arrest is seen as a genuine flashpoint in a larger national reckoning. It's not just about one person's alleged crimes, however horrific. It's a stark, very public window into how these systemic issues operate within Australian policing.
It forces us to look beyond the individual.
Exactly. It forces us to confront serious concerns about the institutional culture, the effectiveness or lack thereof of data oversight practices, and the fundamental integrity standards within NSW policing, and potentially other forces too. Brings them right to the forefront.
It makes us look at that contaminated soil again, not just the one sick tree.
Precisely. And that brings us squarely to the deeper rot, the patterns of institutional betrayal. Leslie's case, as horrifying as it is, isn't in a vacuum.
No, the sources are clear on that.
They reiterate that central argument.
Yeah.
These aren't merely individual criminal acts. They are symptoms of a deeply ingrained and pervasive cultural problem.
Described as a betrayal buried by silence, protected by power, and normalized by institutions more invested in reputation than justice.
That sums it up starkly. It's not just about a few bad people. It's about a deeply flawed system that enables and protects them.
And the sources identify several common threads, these chilling patterns that run through decades of these cases, really showing the extent of this systemic rot. Let's unpack those. One was cover-ups disguised as internal discipline.
Yes. This is where serious misconduct, sometimes outright criminal behavior, is handled internally, behind closed doors.
Away from public view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without public accountability, without criminal charges being laid. It's like an institutional mechanism designed specifically to avoid external scrutiny, preserve the institution's image, often at the expense of justice.
How does that actually work?
It can happen through internal investigations that just conclude without public charges, or findings that remain secret, buried in personnel files.
And related to that, you mentioned quiet retirements instead of prosecutions.
Yes, they go hand in hand. In numerous instances, officers facing these kinds of serious allegations were simply allowed to resign, or they retired, sometimes with full honors, even after accusations surfaced.
So they avoid any public reckoning.
Precisely. They were often never publicly named in relation to the allegations, effectively allowing them to escape public scrutiny, formal legal consequences, and the public shame that might accompany criminal charges. It's a systemic way for the institution to make the problem disappear from public view.
Without actually addressing it.
Without addressing the underlying issues or holding individuals fully accountable. Remember Senior Constable Sean John Toohey in Victoria, charged with CAM possession in 2006.
He resigned before court, right?
Exactly. Resigned before his court appearance, effectively avoiding a public trial and its potential outcomes.
And throughout all this, what about the victims? The survivors?
That's perhaps the most heartbreaking pattern.
Yeah.
Survivors were silenced, while officers often maintained access to vulnerable communities. The system, time and again, seemed to prioritize the institution's reputation and its internal stability over the safety and well-being of vulnerable individuals.
You mentioned Amy's story earlier.
Yes, our sources reference her story. She was just 12 years old. She bravely told the police the truth about her experience. And they shut her down.
Shut it down.
Dismissed her. Her story tragically highlights how complaints were routinely dismissed, ignored, or actively suppressed. It left victims feeling unheard, unprotected,
While the perpetrators face no repercussions.
and could potentially continue their access to vulnerable people. It's a devastating betrayal of trust.
And it wasn't just internal processes enabling the silence, was it? There were legal mechanisms used too.
Yes. Suppression orders and barriers to information were actively employed. Legal tools like the Court Suppression and Non-Publication Orders Act 2010 in NSW, along with often restrictive Freedom of Information or FOI laws.
They weren't just used for legitimate privacy reasons.
The allegation is that they were sometimes used specifically to shield offenders, particularly police officers, from public scrutiny. This made it incredibly difficult, sometimes almost impossible, for survivors and investigative journalists to uncover the full extent of the institutional failures.
Creating a kind of official veil of secrecy.
A de facto veil of secrecy over these crimes, and the institutional response, yes.
And something you touched on earlier, which is particularly galling, is that many of these offenders were in highly sensitive roles.
It's truly disturbing. The sources reveal that a significant number of the officers charged worked in positions directly related to child protection.
The very areas they should be safeguarding.
Exactly. Or domestic violence units, or youth engagement units. These are roles of immense public trust where officers are meant to be guardians. Instead, they had direct, often unsupervised, access to the very vulnerable communities they were sworn to protect.
It just amplifies the betrayal exponentially.
Turning protectors into predators within the very system meant to stop them. It's almost unimaginable.
And the final thread you identified?
A pervasive one. Mishandled complaints and failed oversight. Complaints came in from victims, from whistleblowers within the force, even from other concerned police officers sometimes.
That they weren't acted upon properly.
Routinely mishandled internally, according to the sources, ignored, actively suppressed, and external oversight bodies. Often, they failed to intervene effectively.
Until when?
Until whistleblowers or independent investigative journalists managed to force public exposure. The system, whether by deliberate design or just sheer consequence, operated to keep these truths buried.
It reflects a profound lack of accountability, doesn't it? From within and without.
Absolutely. It's that contaminated soil actively resisting any attempt at cleansing.
So, looking at the bigger picture here, what does this all add up to?
It means the sources reveal a deeply ingrained culture of impunity, prioritizing institutional reputation over child safety. That's the core finding.
And the warnings were there.
Police forces across Australia were warned by victims, by colleagues, by community leaders. They knew or should have known about these issues. But despite these warnings,
They chose silence.
they chose image over truth. And ultimately, chillingly, they chose predators over children. That's the stark reality this deep dive has uncovered.
It really points to a profoundly cultural problem, doesn't it? Not just a criminal one scattered across individuals.
It's absolutely systemic. A failure where the very institutions meant to protect children actively participated in their betrayal through silence, through inaction, through cover-up. It is the contaminated soil.
Given the depth and breadth of these issues, it's vital we acknowledge the forces working to bring this out into the open and demand change.
Absolutely. And our sources prominently highlight Underground Media Network, or UMN, as a critical force in this. They identify as an independent, survivor-led investigative journalism platform.
And their mission is quite specific, isn't it?
Yes, very. They state they're dedicated to exposing corruption, racism, and silenced survivor stories that mainstream media often avoids. They talk about journalism with teeth.
Which sounds essential when you're tackling such deeply embedded institutional problems.
Exactly. Problems that other outlets might, perhaps, shy away from due to pressure, complexity, or just lack of resources for that deep dive.
And there's a key figure associated with UMN's work in this area.
Yes, Landon Germanotta-Mills. He's a prolific author and investigative journalist for UMN, and importantly, identifies as a survivor journalist.
That perspective must bring unique weight to the work.
Immense weight and a raw, invaluable perspective. He's authored numerous influential articles, particularly this year, 2025, which have been absolutely instrumental in shining a harsh, necessary light on these systemic problems.
And his work goes beyond just reporting the facts, doesn't it?
It really does. Articles like Predators in Uniform, a 37-year history of police officers charged with child exploitation crimes in Australia, 1988-2025.
That timeline we discussed.
Yes. And his detailed reporting on the Mitchell Leslie case, an SW police officer charged with possessing 200,000 child abuse images. These aren't just articles. They serve as a dedicated archive of institutional accountability.
Almost like creating the record the institutions failed to keep or tried to bury.
Precisely. He has meticulously unearthed the historical record. His work is described not just as journalism, but as a direct catalyst for systemic change, giving a powerful voice to the silenced, challenging the narratives that protect perpetrators and institutions.
And it's not just about exposing the past, it's about pushing for future change, advocacy.
Absolutely. UMN's work directly connects the patterns of institutional betrayal we've discussed to demands for fundamental reform. They're building momentum.
So, with all this evidence laid bare and the ongoing exposure from UMN and others, what exactly are they demanding? What reforms are being called for?
UMN and survivor advocates are calling for specific, comprehensive reforms. Reforms that aim to get right to the root of that contaminated soil.
Okay, what's top of the list?
Firstly, a national royal commission into police-perpetrated child sexual abuse.
A royal commission? That's significant.
Hugely significant.
Yeah.
It would be a powerful, independent body with broad powers to investigate, to subpoena witnesses, to uncover the full, multi-state, multi-decade extent of this crisis, and crucially, to make binding recommendations for systemic change.
A full public reckoning, essentially, ensuring no jurisdiction can hide its part.
Exactly. Secondly, they're demanding mandatory public reporting of police disciplinary actions.
To combat the secrecy.
Precisely. To address the quiet dismissals, the internal handlings that have plagued the system for decades. It would force transparency and accountability into a system that has historically preferred the shadows.
Imagine the difference that would make to public trust.
potentially enormous.
Mhm.
Thirdly, there's a crucial call for federal legislation protecting whistleblowers and survivor journalists.
Why is that so important?
It's vital to empower those brave individuals who come forward with the truth, whether they're police officers blowing the whistle internally or survivors trying to share their stories and expose wrongdoing.
Protecting them from retaliation.
Yes. Such a legislation would aim to prevent them from being silenced, discredited, or retaliated against, which has tragically happened far too often in the past. It creates a safer pathway for the truth to actually emerge.
And the last main demand.
Full, independent inquiries into state-level police misconduct and the use of suppression orders.
Focusing on the state mechanisms.
Yes, aimed squarely at dismantling the specific legal and institutional barriers within each state that have historically shielded offenders from public scrutiny and accountability, ensuring legal tools aren't weaponized to protect institutional image over child safety.
So why do you, our listener, need to know about these demands?
Because the arrest of Mitchell Leslie, shocking as it is viewed as that flashpoint in a larger national reckoning. These reforms aren't just about punishing individuals after the fact.
They're about changing the system itself.
Exactly. They're about preventing future harm. They're about trying to restore public trust in institutions that are absolutely meant to protect us. They're about ensuring that such profound betrayals are never, ever again buried by silence.
It's about finally cleansing that contaminated soil.
So that healthy growth, genuine safety can finally begin.
As we wrap up this deep dive, it's overwhelmingly clear, isn't it? The pervasive nature of police child exploitation in Australia isn't just a collection of random awful incidents.
No. It's a profound problem of systemic institutional betrayal.
We've looked at the visible sick trees, the individual officers charged with these heinous crimes. But, maybe more importantly, we've tried to illuminate how the entire soil beneath that forest is contaminated.
Contaminated by those systemic failures, the institutional cover-ups, the cultural impunity, and until that entire system is truly cleansed through comprehensive, meaningful reform.
The visible problems, the individual cases of horrific abuse will tragically just keep resurfacing.
Yeah. So as you reflect on everything we've discussed today, maybe consider this provocative thought. What does true institutional accountability really look like in practice?
It has to be more than just punishing individuals, right?
It has to be about transforming entire systems, entire cultures.
And perhaps, more personally, how can you, as a well-informed learner now, contribute to this ongoing fight? The fight for transparency, for justice.
Ensuring that these kinds of betrayals are never again buried by silence. It's a question that demands an answer from all of us, doesn't it?
It really does. Once again, we want to remind you of the content warning for this deep dive. The issues discussed are distressing.
If you or someone you know needs support, please reach out. Contact Bravehearts on 1-800-272-831, Blue Knot Foundation on 1-300-657-380, or 1-800-RESPECT on 1-800-737-732.
Thank you for joining us on the deep dive.